Viewers, we are in fact bringing to you another piece of information now that we are in fact accessing. This is on camera that we have accessed these very footages wherein a US has come out to intercept a Russian oil tanker. Now, US has seized this Russian vessel motor tanker Bella, wherein US War Department posts this very video and has also posted a message on X along with that very visual, saying conducted a boarding and seizure of the motor tanker Bella 1 this morning in the North Atlantic following a sustained shadowing effort across the Atlantic by the Coast Guard Cutter Monroe. Tactical Coast Guard teams leveraged our powerful maritime law enforcement authorities to secure Bella 1 through a tightly executed joint operation. Through a whole of government efforts and seamless coordination, our maritime fighting force is proud to own the sea, uphold international law, and defend. This is Defend America. This is the particular information that we have in fact accessed. This is the message as well that's been put up on platform X. And we quickly cut across to Rohit at this given point to understand what exactly went down in terms of the seizure and this operation in whole that's taken place. Rohit, if you could just take us through the very operation that's been conducted and this very message too that has been put up on platform X by the Coast Guard Department.
So, the Americans and in conjunction with the UK were able to apprehend two oil tankers. One of them, essentially both of them belong to Russians. And the Americans have put in sanctions on anybody in the Caribbean trying to transport any stuff out of Venezuela. And again, more importantly, the oil that has been at the crux of this situation in Venezuela. So this morning, my morning apparently, it appeared that the Americans were able to have these two oil tankers that they have been chasing for months. They were able to apprehend them, and they're bringing them to America. And then we saw what we've seen through that video, that these oil tankers, according to America and the sanctions, were violating American policy in the Western Hemisphere. President Trump has made it pretty clear that the oil from Venezuela should be handled by American, or guided by how America wants to handle it. And then we've seen Secretary Marco Rubio, who's come on to say that these tankers will be brought to the U.S. and about 50 million gallons of oil will be sold by the U.S. and the profits will be shared by the U.S. and Venezuela. So in all, I think President Trump is trying to do three things there. First, he's trying to make sure that the world understands that America is very serious about Western Hemisphere, that nobody should be violating what America believes is its own hemisphere and America First policy. B, making sure that oil, the Venezuelan oil, does not go to adversaries, of America's adversaries, which is Russia, Iran, and China. And third, this is a power move to ensure that other nations in the Western Hemisphere that are not in resonance with American foreign policy, be it Cuba or Mexico or Colombia for that matter, they are put to notice that America will take actions. So I think this is a demonstration of power by America to make sure that America can take on Russia. It can send a strong message to the world, and that America will be in charge of what happens with Venezuelan oil.
It's a three-pronged operation if one is to look at the reason, or rather the objective with which this particular trip was seized by the American Coast Guard along with the Department of War at this given point, as has been mentioned in this very post that's come out. With that, viewers, let us take you through this particular story now, which is, of course, in continuance to this very incident that's happened. It's a culmination that we see in the form of this very incident, wherein 5 days after US's Venezuelan strikes, Trump admin continues to escalate. Washington has seized two Venezuelan oil tankers, tightening its global squeeze on Caracas and drawing a sharp reaction from Moscow. US forces boarded and seized these tankers in back-to-back operations across the North Atlantic. Both vessels were under the U.S. sanctions, and officials say that the action is a part of a broader blockade on Venezuelan oil exports. Now, one of the ships, which is a Russian-flagged tanker, was intercepted in the Caribbean waters after a 2-week pursuit, and the operation gained added significance after the tanker was shadowed by a Russian submarine, though no direct confrontation has been reported. Now, the U.S. message is unambiguous. U.S. Secretary of War Hexeth has said that blockade of sanctioned Venezuelan oil is on and in full effect anywhere in the world. Russia, meanwhile, is pushing back at the same time, wherein Moscow calls the situation concerning, says the vessel was in international waters and it insists that it was operating under global maritime law while flying the Russian state flag. So this is where the situation currently stands. Let's quickly take a look at the reactions that's there into the story.
2 oil tankers, 2 overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or sanctioned, because the oil blockade, the quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless, sanctioned or stateless vessels continues. That leverage will continue as Secretary Rubio outlined. So our military is prepared to continue this. As he said, the president, when he speaks, he means it.
The second phase will be a phase that we call recovery, and that is ensuring that American, Western, and other companies have access to the Venezuelan market in a way that's fair. Also, at the same time, begin to create the process of reconciliation nationally within Venezuela so that the opposition forces can be amnestied and released and from prisons or brought back to the country and begin to rebuild civil society. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front.
This was the sanctioned oil that was basically just sitting in barrels, sitting on ships because of the effective quarantine of the United States of America. And the interim authorities have agreed to release that oil to the United States, so it will be arriving here at home very soon. The United States government has already begun marketing Venezuelan crude oil in the global marketplace for the benefit of the United States, engaged the world's leading commodity marketers, key banks to execute and provide financial support for these crude oil and crude product sales. All proceeds from the sale of Venezuelan crude oil and products will first settle in U.S.-controlled accounts at globally recognized banks to guarantee the legitimacy and integrity of the ultimate distribution of proceeds, and those funds will be dispersed for the benefit of the American people and the Venezuelan people at the discretion of the United States government.
Now, with that, viewers, India Today's Geeta Mohan explains the developments in this very story as to how things have panned out so far ever since the entire takeover in Venezuela. Let's quickly take a look.
The statements that have come out of White House, or for that matter, Trump administration officials, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, make it very clear that there are no boundaries when it comes to Venezuelan oil, that they're going to track Venezuelan oil anywhere in the world. And that makes this move, this action by the United States of America against an oil tanker bearing a Russian flag very, very serious. They have invoked the United Nations Charter. They're saying that it is violative of the laws of the seas. But right now, America is not paying heed to rules-based order. It's following what it thinks is best in its national interest. And so we'll have to wait and see how Russia reacts to this as a threat to its own national interest, and how China looks at it as a threat not just to regional security, but global security as well.